learned today that actor Louis Gossett Jr. has died, a trailblazing actor, the first black man to win the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor for his role in An Officer and a Gentleman.
Hollywood has seen its fair share of tough guys. But when it comes to grit, presence, and raw intensity, these black actors brought something different to the screen. Whether they were playing fearless action heroes, no-nonsense leaders, or real-life legends, their toughness wasn't just for show. It came from experience, resilience, and undeniable talent. From street-smart icons of the 70s to modern-day powerhouses dominating the box office, here are 30 toughest black actors in Hollywood history. 1. Sidney Poitier.
Let me tell you something. I owe you nothing. If you carried that bag 1,000,000 miles, you did what you were supposed to do.
Sidney Poitier broke through Hollywood's barriers like a sledgehammer through glass. This Bahamian-born actor became the first black man to win the Academy Award for Best Actor in 1964 for Lilies of the Field. But here's the thing about Poitier. He didn't just act tough, he lived it. Growing up poor in the Bahamas, he moved to New York at 15 with just $3 in his pocket and a thick accent that made him nearly unintelligible to casting directors. Poitier taught himself to speak proper English by listening to radio broadcasts and reading newspapers. He lied about his age and experience to get his first audition, got laughed out of the room, but came back 6 months later completely transformed. His breakout role in The Blackboard Jungle showed audiences a different kind of black character, educated, articulate, and refusing to back down. What made Poitier truly tough wasn't just his physical presence in films like In the Heat of the Night, where he delivered that famous line, "They call me Mr. Tibbs." It was his refusal to take degrading roles. He turned down parts that required him to play servants or criminals, even when he desperately needed the money. This guy was so particular about his image that he once said he felt voice-like he was carrying the hopes of an entire race on his shoulders. 2. Morgan Freeman.
We are in a state of emergency, and my word is law. There's only one boss in this place, and that's me.
Before Morgan Freeman became that wise, gravelly voice we all know and love, he was scrapping for roles well into his 40s. Freeman spent years doing children's theater and even played Easy Reader on the Electric Company. Yes, that PBS Kids show. But this man had patience like steel and determination like granite. Freeman's breakthrough came at age 50 with Street Smart, where he played a dangerous pimp named Fast Black. The role was so intense and believable that it earned him his first Oscar nomination. What's really wild is that Freeman did extensive research for the role, hanging out in actual rough neighborhoods to understand the character. He wasn't afraid to dive deep into the darkness. His role in Driving Miss Daisy could have been just another subservient character, but Freeman brought such dignity and quiet strength to Hoke that he turned a potentially demeaning role into something powerful. In The Shawshank Redemption, his character Red became the moral center of the entire film. Freeman's toughness comes from his ability to find strength in quiet moments and make every word count like a punch. 3. Denzel Washington.
I drank the vodka bottles on the plane. I was drunk. I'm drunk now.
Denzel Washington didn't just walk into Hollywood, he stormed in. This son of a Pentecostal minister from Mount Vernon, New York, brought an intensity to his roles that could melt steel. His early work in Saint Elsewhere showed hints of his power, but it was his role as Private Trip in Glory that announced his arrival as a serious force. Washington's preparation for roles borders on obsessive. For Malcolm X, he spent a year researching, lost weight to match Malcolm's build, learned to speak Arabic, and even made a pilgrimage to Mecca. He didn't just play Malcolm, he became him. The physical transformation was so complete that people on the street would call him Malcolm. But it's his role as Alonzo in Training Day that really showed his range. Playing a corrupt cop was against everything Washington typically stood for, but he dove into the role with such conviction that it earned him his second Oscar. He spent time with real narcotics officers and studied the psychology of corruption. Washington once said he could play the villain so well because he understood the darkness that exists in everyone. 4. Spike Lee.
Wop, Guinea, garlic bread, pizza slinging, spaghetti bending, Victor Mon, Perry Como, Luciano Pavarotti, solo meal, non-singer motherfucker.
Spike Lee is tough in a completely different way. He's a cultural warrior who uses cameras instead of fists. This Brooklyn native funded his first feature film, She's Gotta Have It, with credit cards and a $175,000 budget that felt like pocket change compared to Hollywood standards. But Lee didn't need big money to make big statements. Do the Right Thing put Lee on the map as someone who wasn't afraid to tackle the most controversial subjects in American society. The film was so provocative that some critics worried it might cause riots. Lee didn't care. He was more interested in starting conversations than keeping people comfortable. He famously got into heated debates with critics and other filmmakers about his portrayal of race relations. Lee's toughness shows in his refusal to compromise his vision. When studios wanted him to cast a white actor as the lead in Malcolm X, he fought back and raised the money independently. He mortgaged his house and called in favors from celebrities like Magic Johnson and Oprah Winfrey. The man literally put everything on the line for his art. He's been arrested multiple times at protest marches and never shies away from calling out racism in Hollywood, even when it might hurt his career. 5. Roxy Roker.
Well, if you had 5 margaritas, you must have landed an hour after the plane did.
Roxy Roker might not seem like the obvious choice for a toughest list, but this woman was breaking barriers when it was genuinely dangerous to do so. As Helen Willis on The Jeffersons, she was part of television's first interracial couple, and the hate mail she received was brutal. Death threats were common, but Roker never backed down. Born in Miami to Bahamian parents, Roker faced discrimination her entire career. She was often told she was too light for black roles and too dark for white ones. Instead of letting this stop her, she used it as fuel. She became an activist for civil rights and women's rights, using her platform to speak out against injustice. What made Roker truly tough was her determination to create opportunities for others. She mentored young actors and worked behind the scenes to get more diverse representation in television. Her son, Lenny Kravitz, has often spoken about how his mother taught him to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult. She died of breast cancer in 1995, but fought the disease with the same grace and strength she brought to everything else. 6. Harry Belafonte.
Virgin Mary had a baby boy and she gave him the name of Jesus.
Harry Belafonte was tough enough to stare down both Hollywood executives and racist protesters. Known as the King of Calypso for hits like Banana Boat Song, Belafonte used his musical success as a launching pad for acting and activism. But this wasn't some smooth transition. Belafonte had to fight for every role that didn't fit Hollywood's narrow ideas about black performers. In Carmen Jones, Belafonte proved he could carry a major film, but he was constantly battling studios that wanted to limit him to singing roles. He demanded better parts and got them, appearing in Island in the Sun at a time when interracial relationships on screen were practically forbidden. The film faced boycotts and protests, but Belafonte stood firm. His real toughness showed in his civil rights work. Belafonte was one of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s closest advisors and used his celebrity status to fund the movement. He bailed activists out of jail, organized benefit concerts, and even snuck money to Dr. King's family when they needed it most. When the KKK threatened his life, Belafonte kept performing and protesting. He once said, "Artists have power, and with power comes responsibility." 7. Louis Gossett, Jr.
Every time I say understand, I want the whole group to say, yes, sir.
Understand? Yes, sir. Understand? Yes, sir.
Louis Gossett Jr. earned his stripes the hard way through decades of grinding in theater before Hollywood took notice. This Brooklyn native started acting at 17 and spent years perfecting his craft on Broadway. His breakthrough came with his Tony-nominated performance in A Raisin in the Sun, but it was his role in the TV miniseries Roots that showed America what he could really do. Playing Fiddler, an enslaved man who trains young Kunta Kinte, Gossett brought such raw emotion to the role that viewers felt every moment of pain and resistance. The performance was so powerful that it changed how many Americans viewed slavery and its lasting effects. But Gossett's defining moment came with An Officer and a Gentleman, where he played the drill sergeant who nearly breaks Richard Gere's character. When he won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor, he became the first black man to win in that category. His acceptance speech was simple and dignified, just like the man himself. 8. Diahann Carroll.
Being black is not a problem for a black person. Being black is a problem for the community.
Diahann Carroll was tough enough to be the first, and being first is never easy. As the star of Julia, she became the first black woman to lead a television series in a non-domestic role. This was 1968, when the civil rights movement was still raging, and many Americans weren't ready to see a black woman as anything other than a maid or nanny. Carroll faced criticism from all sides. Some white viewers complained about having a black woman in their living rooms every week. Some black activists argued that her character was too assimilated and didn't represent the struggles of most black Americans. Carroll stood in the middle of this storm with remarkable poise, defending her right to play a complex, three-dimensional character. Her toughness went beyond television. On Broadway, she starred in No Strings, becoming the first black woman to play a leading role in a major Broadway musical opposite a white male lead. The show dealt with interracial romance, which was still controversial in the early 1960s. Carroll's performance earned her a Tony Award and proved she could handle any material thrown at her. 9. Samuel Leroy Jackson.
English, do you speak it?
Yes.
Then you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
Describe what Marcellus Wallace looks like.
Samuel Leroy Jackson's path to stardom was anything but smooth. This Washington, D.C. native struggled with drug addiction for years and didn't land his breakthrough role until he was in his 40s. But when Jackson found his groove, he became one of the most recognizable and quotable actors in Hollywood history. His role as Jules Winfield in Pulp Fiction changed everything. That biblical speech before executing someone became an instant movie legend, but Jackson brought more than just memorable lines to the role. He created a character who was philosophical and terrifying, thoughtful and violent. The performance earned him an Oscar nomination and showed that he could steal scenes from anyone. Jackson's toughness comes from his incredible work ethic and his willingness to take on any role. He has appeared in over 150 films, playing everything from Jedi Masters to action heroes to dramatic leads. He once said he chooses roles based on whether they'll be fun to make, and that childlike enthusiasm, combined with his professional intensity, makes him nearly unstoppable. 10. Cicely Tyson.
I think it's a shame that I would have to be known as the most foremost black actress of our time.
Cicely Tyson was tough as nails wrapped in silk gloves. This Harlem-born actress made a career out of playing strong black women at a time when those roles barely existed. Her performance in Sounder earned her an Oscar nomination, but it was her portrayal of a woman aging from 19 to 110 years old in the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman that showed her true range. Tyson spent months preparing for the role, studying elderly people and working with makeup artists to create one of the most convincing aging performances in television history. The physical transformation was so complete that viewers believed they were watching a different person in each stage of the character's life. The performance earned her multiple Emmy Awards and changed how the industry viewed what black actresses could accomplish. What made Tyson truly tough was her refusal to compromise her values. She turned down roles that she felt were demeaning or stereotypical, even when she needed the money. She once went years without working rather than take parts that didn't meet her standards. In her later years, she became a mentor to younger actors and a living legend who proved that dignity and talent could overcome any obstacle. 11. Ethel Waters.
Petunia, is this really you?
Mm-hmm, but not the same me who used to break her back busting suds over a tub for you.
Ethel Waters was a powerhouse who sang her way into Hollywood and then refused to leave quietly. This Chester, Pennsylvania native started out singing blues in dingy clubs where she had to fight off grabby customers and crooked club owners. She became one of the highest-paid performers of her era, but her real toughness showed when she decided to tackle acting. At a time when most black performers were limited to singing or dancing roles, Waters demanded speaking parts and dramatic scenes. Her role in Pinky made her the second black actor ever nominated for an Oscar, but the road there was brutal. Waters had to deal with white actors who refused to work with her and directors who wanted to cut her scenes. She also starred in Cabin in the Sky alongside Lena Horne, and the two women reportedly couldn't stand each other, creating legendary on-set tension. Waters later became the first black woman to star in her own TV show, The Ethel Waters Show, proving she could carry any medium on her shoulders. 12. James Earl Jones.
And we are coming on the air right now because ABC News has just learned that legendary actor James Earl Jones has died.
James Earl Jones overcame a severe stutter to become one of the most recognizable voices in entertainment history. Growing up on a farm in Michigan, Jones was so embarrassed by his speech problems that he barely spoke for years. His high school English teacher forced him to recite poetry, which slowly helped him gain confidence. But here's the kicker. The man who would become the voice of Darth Vader was once too scared to order food at restaurants. Jones's breakthrough came with The Great White Hope on Broadway, where he played a boxer based on Jack Johnson. The role was physically demanding and emotionally draining, requiring Jones to bulk up and learn boxing techniques. When he took the role to film, it earned him an Oscar nomination. Of course, everyone knows his voice work as Darth Vader in Star Wars, but few people realize he was paid just $7,000 for the first film because he thought it would flop. His deep voice became so iconic that he's done voice work well into his 90s, proving that some talents never fade. 13. Hattie McDaniel.
I told you I was a single woman. I'm a deserted wife. I get alimony.
You do?
Well, I'm entitled to it. I got 15 years of alimony coming to me.
Hattie McDaniel was the first black person to win an Oscar, but the night she received it, she had to sit at a segregated table away from the other nominees. Born in Kansas to former slaves, McDaniel started performing as a teenager, singing with her siblings in traveling shows. She moved to Hollywood during the Depression and took whatever work she could find, including working as a maid between acting gigs, which gave her real-life experience for many of her film roles. Her performance as Mammy in Gone with the Wind made her famous, but it also made her a target for criticism from civil rights groups who felt her roles reinforced negative stereotypes. McDaniel famously responded to critics by saying she'd rather make $700 a week playing a maid than earn $7 a week being one. She also became the first black woman to sing on national radio, breaking another barrier with her powerful voice. Despite facing constant discrimination, McDaniel bought a mansion in an all-white neighborhood in West Adams, Los Angeles, and threw legendary parties that brought together black and white performers at a time when such mixing was rare. 14. Lena Horne.
I've wined and dined on mulligan stew and never asked for turkey.
Lena Horne was beautiful enough to be a movie star and tough enough to fight a racist system that tried to limit her to musical numbers that could be easily cut from films shown in the South. Born into a middle-class Brooklyn family, Horne started performing at the Cotton Club when she was just 16, but she hated how the club fetishized black performers for white audiences. She became one of the first black women to sign a major studio contract with MGM, but the deal came with strict conditions that prevented her from playing anything but light-skinned characters. Horne's most famous moment came with Stormy Weather, where her performance of the title song became legendary. But she was constantly fighting with studio executives who wanted to control her image and limit her roles. When World War II broke out, Horne entertained troops, but refused to perform for segregated audiences, which got her in trouble with both the military and her studio. She also had a famous friendship with Eleanor Roosevelt and used her connections to push for civil rights, proving she was as tough behind the scenes as she was beautiful on screen. 15. John Amos.
I probably would have fired John Amos too, because he was not the nicest guy in those days. I was what you call the atypical angry young man.
John Amos was a former football player who brought athletic toughness to his acting roles. Before becoming an actor, he played semi-professional football and worked as a social worker in New York City. His big break came with Good Times, where he played James Evans Sr., but Amos clashed constantly with the show's writers over how his character was portrayed. He felt they were making black fathers look foolish and fought for more dignity in the writing. Amos's battles with Good Times producers became so intense that he was eventually fired from the show, but he didn't regret standing up for his principles. His next major role in Roots as the adult Kunta Kinte showed his dramatic range and earned him an Emmy nomination. What many people don't know is that Amos did much of his own stunt work and research for the role, studying African culture and learning traditional dances. He also worked as a writer on several shows and never stopped fighting for better representation of black characters on television. 16. Paul Robeson.
Sometimes I feel like a motherless child.
Paul Robeson was a Renaissance man who could have been successful in almost any field he chose. This Princeton graduate was a lawyer, athlete, singer, and actor who spoke multiple languages and was equally comfortable performing Shakespeare or Negro spirituals. But Robeson's real toughness came from his willingness to sacrifice his career for his political beliefs. At the height of his fame, he began speaking out against racism and supporting communist causes, which made him a target during the Cold War. Robeson's passport was revoked by the U.S. government in 1950, effectively ending his international career and costing him millions in lost earnings. He was blacklisted in America and couldn't perform in most venues, but he refused to back down from his beliefs. He continued to speak out against injustice even when it meant financial ruin and constant FBI surveillance. His film work in movies like The Emperor Jones showed he could handle complex leading roles at a time when most black actors were limited to supporting parts. 17. Eartha Kitt.
How can Batgirl be the best anything when Catwoman is around? No best-dressed list is complete without the addition of the Queen of...
Eartha Kitt was thrown out of a White House luncheon for criticizing the Vietnam War, but she never apologized for speaking her mind. Born into poverty in South Carolina, Kitt was abandoned by her mother and raised by relatives who treated her badly. She ran away to New York as a teenager and worked her way up from nightclub singer to international star. Her exotic looks and distinctive voice made her famous, but her outspoken personality made her controversial. Kitt's portrayal of Catwoman in the Batman TV series made her a pop culture icon, but she brought a dangerous sensuality to the role that was unlike anything seen on television before. Her purring voice and predatory movements created a character that was both seductive and threatening. Off-screen, Kitt was equally fierce, never hesitating to call out racism or injustice even when it hurt her career. After her White House confrontation with Lady Bird Johnson, she was essentially blacklisted in America for years and had to rebuild her career in Europe. 18. Dorothy Dandridge.
I love you. That gives me the right
That'll give you no right to own me. There's only one that does. That's me, myself.
Dorothy Dandridge was Hollywood's first black leading lady, but the price she paid for breaking that barrier was enormous. Born in Cleveland, Dandridge started performing as a child with her sister in a group called the Wonder Children. She was incredibly beautiful and talented, but Hollywood didn't know what to do with a black woman who didn't fit their limited stereotypes. Her starring role in Carmen Jones made her the first black woman nominated for Best Actress, but she struggled to find follow-up roles. Dandridge's personal life was marked by tragedy and struggle. She had a daughter with severe brain damage and spent most of her earnings on the child's care. She also faced constant discrimination in Hollywood and was often told she was too black for white roles, but not black enough for traditional black parts. Her nightclub performances were legendary, and she commanded huge fees, but she was frequently denied hotel rooms and restaurant service because of her race. She died at age 42 under mysterious circumstances, with many believing the pressures of breaking barriers had taken their toll. 19. Oprah Winfrey.
All my life I had to fight. I had to fight my daddy, I had to fight my uncles, I had to fight my brothers.
Oprah Winfrey turned a traumatic childhood into media empire gold. Born into poverty in rural Mississippi, she was raised by her grandmother and later moved between her mother and father's homes. She was sexually abused as a child and became pregnant at 14, but she refused to let her past define her future. She started working in media as a teenager and quickly showed she had a natural talent for connecting with people and telling their stories. Winfrey's acting debut in The Color Purple earned her an Oscar nomination, but she was initially hesitant to take the role because she felt she wasn't a real actress. Director Steven Spielberg convinced her to audition, and her emotional performance as Sophia showed she had dramatic chops to match her talk show skills. She later founded Harpo Productions and became the first black woman to own a major production company. Her business sense was as sharp as her interviewing skills, and she built a media empire worth billions while never forgetting her humble beginnings. 20. Kerry Washington.
My battalion is working day and night in horrible conditions. We have no heat most of the time.
Kerry Washington broke television barriers by becoming the first black woman to headline a network drama in nearly 40 years with Scandal. But her path to that historic role wasn't easy. Washington spent years taking smaller parts in films and TV shows, often playing the supportive friend or girlfriend rather than the leading lady. She studied at George Washington University and Juilliard, giving her both academic credentials and serious acting training that she used to tackle every role with precision. Washington's portrayal of Olivia Pope in Scandal created a new template for black women on television: powerful, complex, flawed, and unapologetic. She also became one of the highest-paid actresses on TV and used her platform to speak out on political and social issues. Her role in Django Unchained showed her dramatic range, playing a character who endures unthinkable brutality while maintaining her inner strength. Washington has also worked as a producer and director, proving she's as tough behind the camera as she is in front of it. 21st, Halle Berry. Halle Berry broke more than just barriers. She broke her own tailbone doing stunts and kept filming anyway. This former beauty queen from Cleveland turned actress made history as the first black woman to win Best Actress at the Oscars for Monsters Ball. But her path there was anything but glamorous. Berry started out sleeping in homeless shelters when she first moved to New York, surviving on $11 a day and once living in a YMCA. She was so broke that she couldn't afford to call her mother for months, but she refused to give up or go home. Berry's toughness really showed when she took on action roles that most actresses wouldn't touch. In X-Men, she did her own wire work as Storm, and during John Wick, Chapter 3, she spent months training with Belgian Malinois dogs and learning advanced fight choreography. She broke 3 ribs during John Wick filming, but finished the scene before going to the hospital. Berry also directed and starred in bruised, playing an aging MMA fighter, and took real hits during training sessions with professional fighters. At age 54, she was throwing punches and taking them like someone half her age. 22nd, Whoopi Goldberg.
I'm proud of you, Oda Mae.
You know something, Sam? I don't care if you're proud of me. You stay away from me from now on. What is that nut gonna do with it? She can't even buy underwear, nothing. I hate you. Leave me alone. Never talk to me again.
Whoopi Goldberg went from welfare mom to EGOT winner, which is about as tough as career transformations get. Born Karen Johnson in New York, she created the name Whoopi because she was gassy as a kid. Yes, really. And people said she was like a whoopee cushion. She dropped out of high school, struggled with drug addiction, and worked as a bricklayer and makeup artist in morgues before finding comedy. Her one-woman Broadway show caught Steven Spielberg's attention and landed her the lead in The Color Purple. Goldberg's performance in Ghost made her the second black woman ever to win an Oscar, but she almost turned down the role because she thought it was stupid to have a romantic triangle involving a dead guy. She took the part anyway and created one of cinema's most memorable supporting characters. As a host on The View, Goldberg has never been afraid to speak her mind, getting into heated political debates and occasionally walking off stage when discussions get too intense. She's also one of the few people to defend controversial figures publicly, showing she's not afraid of backlash when she believes in something. 23. Eddie Murphy.
Look at my cheekbones! I have cheekbones! Look at my cheekbones! Yes! Look at my chest! Look at my breasts! Oh, I don't have breasts! I'm an A-cup!
Eddie Murphy was so raw and unfiltered on Saturday Night Live that NBC censors had to create new rules just for him. This Brooklyn kid started doing stand-up at 15 and was so good that he got hired for SNL when he was just 19. His characters, like Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood, were so edgy that they pushed the boundaries of what television could show. Murphy would improvise lines that made other cast members break character, and his impressions were so dead on that celebrities would call the show asking if he was making fun of them. Murphy's movie career took off like a rocket with 48 Hours, where he played a convict who helps catch criminals while chained to Nick Nolte. But it was Beverly Hills Cop that made him a superstar. He improvised most of his dialogue and created Axel Foley's laugh on the spot. The banana in the tailpipe scene? Pure Murphy improvisation. He has played multiple characters in several films, including The Nutty Professor, where he played 7 different family members, requiring hours of makeup and prosthetics. Murphy did all the voices for Shrek without ever meeting the other actors, creating Donkey's personality entirely through voice work and making the character one of animation's most beloved sidekicks. 24. Will Smith.
If you ask me a question and I don't know the answer, I'm going to tell you that I don't know. But I bet you what, I know how to find the answer.
Will Smith went from rapper to TV star to movie megastar through pure force of personality and an almost scary level of self-confidence. As the Fresh Prince, he was already spending money he didn't have on cars and jewelry, which led to massive tax problems that forced him to take the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air TV gig. He was so broke when filming started that his first paycheck went directly to the IRS. But Smith turned that desperation into motivation, studying every successful actor's career and mapping out his own path to superstardom. Smith's dedication to roles is borderline obsessive. For ALI, he trained with professional boxers for over a year, gained 35 pounds of muscle, and learned to box left-handed like Muhammad Ali. He spent so much time studying Ali that people close to the boxer said Smith captured mannerisms they'd forgotten Ali had. For the pursuit of happiness, Smith lived in shelters and soup kitchens to understand his character's struggle. He also brought his real son Jaden into the film, creating genuine father-son chemistry that couldn't be faked. His box office streak of 8 consecutive $100 million films is a record that still stands, proving he could pick winners even when critics doubted him. 25th. Gail Fisher.
I'd also like to thank my agent, Ina Bernstein, and Marilyn Reese, who's my PR lady, and CBS and Paramount, and everybody, my husband for having the patience to put up with me.
Gail Fisher was tougher than the private investigators she worked with on Mannix, breaking barriers while dodging real bullets from angry viewers. This former beauty queen from New Jersey became the first black actress to win an Emmy in a supporting role. But the hate mail she received was so intense that CBS had to hire extra security. Fisher played Secretary Peggy Fair, but she refused to just answer phones and look pretty. She demanded her character be smart, capable, and involved in solving cases. Fisher's road to Mannix was brutal. She was rejected from hundreds of auditions because casting directors said she was too black for white roles and not black enough for traditional black parts. She worked as a model and did small theater parts while waiting for her break. When she finally got Mannix, she had to deal with co-star Mike Connors, initially being uncomfortable with the interracial partnership, but Fisher won him over with her professionalism and talent. She also became the first black woman to have a speaking role in a national TV commercial, breaking another barrier while selling soap and dealing with viewer complaints about seeing a black woman in their living rooms. 26. Martin Lawrence.
So you the suspect, man? What you do?
Doesn't matter.
Oh, so you could have robbed a bank, mugged an old lady?
Martin Lawrence's comedy was so intense and personal that it literally drove him to a mental breakdown, but he came back swinging harder than ever. This German-born, Maryland-raised comedian started performing stand-up as a teenager and was so fearless on stage that he'd talk about anything: family trauma, relationships, social issues, with a rawness that made audiences uncomfortable and laugh at the same time. His HBO specials were so explicit that they came with warning labels, but Lawrence didn't care about offending people if it meant telling the truth. Lawrence's TV show Martin was groundbreaking because he played multiple characters, including Shanae, Mama Payne, and Otis, creating an entire universe of personalities that fans still quote today. But the pressure of carrying a hit show while doing stand-up in movies led to a series of public incidents that landed him in the hospital. Instead of retiring, Lawrence used his struggles as material, creating the Bad Boys franchise with Will Smith and proving he could handle action comedy as well as stand-up. His Big Mama's House films required hours of prosthetic makeup and fat suits, but Lawrence threw himself into the physical comedy with the same intensity he brought to everything else. 27. Debbie Allen.
Have self-control. You'd have to exercise 4 hours a day. I'll exercise 5 hours a day.
Debbie Allen danced her way through every barrier Hollywood could throw at her, then choreographed everyone else's success too. This Houston native was rejected from the North Carolina School of the Arts because of her race, so she went to Howard University instead and turned that rejection into fuel for her career. Allen became the first black woman to choreograph a major award show, and her work on the Academy Awards, Emmy Awards, and other ceremonies set the standard for how these events should look and feel. Allen's role as Lydia Grant in Fame made her famous, but her real power came from behind the camera as the show's producer and director. She fought with network executives who wanted to cut the show's budget and dumb down the storylines, insisting that young audiences deserved better. Allen also opened her own dance academy in Los Angeles, training the next generation of performers and never charging students who couldn't afford tuition. She's directed episodes of dozens of TV shows and mentored countless performers, proving that her toughness extends to lifting up others in the industry. 28. Tyler Perry.
Hello there, Vanity Fair. I'm a dear. Now, don't go pretending that you don't know me or you ain't heard of me. You know who the hell I am.
Tyler Perry went from homeless and abused to billionaire filmmaker by creating characters that Hollywood said nobody wanted to see. This New Orleans native survived a childhood of physical and sexual abuse, dropped out of high school, and was living in his car when he started writing plays. His first play was a disaster. Only 30 people showed up, and Perry lost his savings. But he kept rewriting and performing the same play until audiences started coming, eventually packing theaters across the South with stories about black families that mainstream Hollywood ignored. Perry's creation of Medea came from watching his mother and other strong black women in his community. But Hollywood executives told him the character was too stereotypical and wouldn't work on screen. Perry proved them wrong by financing his own films and building his own studio in Atlanta, becoming the first black person to own a major production facility. Tyler Perry Studios is bigger than most Hollywood lots, and Perry owns it outright. No partners, no investors. He writes, produces, directs, and often stars in his own projects, maintaining creative control that most filmmakers can only dream of having. 29th, Wesley Snipes.
Fuck, are you out of your damn mind?
Wesley Snipes was doing his own martial arts stunts before it was cool, bringing a physicality to action films that changed how black actors were seen in the genre. This Orlando native started training in martial arts as a kid, and by the time he got to Hollywood, he could handle sword fights, gun battles, and hand-to-hand combat better than most stunt doubles. His role in New Jack City showed he could be both intimidating villain and action hero, while White Men Can't Jump proved he could handle comedy without losing his edge. Snipes' Blade trilogy made him one of the first black actors to carry a successful superhero franchise, but he fought constantly with directors and producers who wanted to tone down the character's intensity. He did most of his own stunts and weapon training, becoming proficient with swords and martial arts specifically for the role. His legal troubles with tax evasion landed him in federal prison for 3 years, but Snipes served his time quietly and returned to acting without making excuses or seeking sympathy. His comeback has been steady and professional, showing that real toughness sometimes means accepting consequences and moving forward. 30. Chadwick Boseman.
We must find a way to look after one another as if we were one single tribe.
Chadwick Boseman was literally fighting for his life while filming his most important roles, but nobody knew it because he was too professional to let his illness show. This South Carolina native was diagnosed with colon cancer in 2016, but kept the diagnosis secret while continuing to work on some of the most physically demanding roles in Hollywood. During Black Panther, he was undergoing chemotherapy between takes, but still did his own fight choreography and stunts, never once complaining or asking for special treatment. Boseman's dedication to historical accuracy was legendary. For 42, he spent months studying Jackie Robinson's batting stance and base running technique, working with former Negro League players to perfect his performance. For Get On Up, he learned to split, spin, and slide like James Brown, spending hours watching footage and practicing dance moves until he could match the godfather of soul's energy. His final performance in M.A. Rainey's Black Bottom was filmed while he was in the advanced stages of cancer, but his portrayal of ambitious trumpet player Levy was so powerful that it earned him a posthumous Oscar nomination. Boseman died at 43, but he spent his final years creating characters that would inspire generations of young black actors. These black actors didn't just play strong characters, they became icons. And their legacy? Still as powerful as ever.